The soft hum of hospital machines filled the quiet room, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor. Outside, rain pressed gently against the windows, turning the world into a blur of gray and silver. Inside, a small boy named Ethan Wells, barely 9 months old, lay wrapped in pale green blankets. His breaths came slow, uneven, each one sounding more fragile than the last. His mother, Sophie, sat beside him, her eyes swollen from days of tears. She hadn't slept in almost 2 nights. Her husband, Michael, stood behind her, his hand resting on her shoulder, trying to be strong though his own heart was breaking. Doctors had told them the truth hours ago. There wasn't much time left. But someone else was missing. Someone who had been Ethan's silent guardian since the day he was born. A large German shepherd named Rex sat in the hospital parking lot, staring at the glass doors. He had been there for 3 days, refusing to move, refusing food, refusing the rain. Nurses tried to push him away, guards shouted, but he never left. He only watched, ears alert, tail still, waiting for the little human he loved more than life itself. Rex had been with Ethan from the very beginning. When Sophie was pregnant, the dog never left her side. When she brought Ethan home, Rex would lie beside the crib every night, tail thumping softly whenever the baby giggled. He became Ethan's protector, his shadow, his warmth during every fever and cry. But 3 nights ago, everything changed. Ethan's condition worsened suddenly. His skin grew pale, his body cold. The ambulance came rushing with flashing lights, and Rex barked and tried to jump in. Michael had to hold him back. As the vehicle disappeared down the street, Rex ran after it until his paws bled. Then he came back and waited. He didn't understand hospitals or sickness, only love and loyalty. On the 3rd evening, Sophie finally turned to the doctor and whispered through tears, "He's waiting for him. Please, just one last time. Let him say goodbye." The doctor hesitated, then nodded softly. "Bring him in." The hospital doors slid open, and everyone turned as Rex stepped inside. His fur was wet from the rain, his paws muddy, but his eyes, deep and brown, were gentle and full of pain. Nurses paused, surprised. Patients in the hallway whispered. But no one stopped him. It was as if the whole place understood what was about to happen. Rex walked slowly down the corridor, his nails clicking softly on the floor. When he reached the room, he paused, sniffing the air. Then he stepped inside. Sophie gasped, covering her mouth. Michael looked down, his eyes glistening. Rex approached the crib and placed his head gently on the edge. Ethan's eyes fluttered open slightly. For days, he hadn't responded to anything. Not medicine, not voices, not touch. But now a weak smile spread across his tiny lips. "Ethan," Sophie whispered, trembling. "Look who's here, baby." "Rex came to see you." The little boy's fingers, thin and pale, reached out and brushed the dog's fur. Rex stood perfectly still, not even breathing too loudly. He pressed his nose softly against Ethan's hand and gave the faintest whine, low and trembling. The heart monitor, which had been irregular all day, suddenly steadied. "Beep! Beep! Beep!" The nurse watching the screen gasped. "He knows," she whispered. "He knows Rex is here." Tears streamed down Sophie's face as she held her son's other hand. "He waited for you, Rex," she said softly. For several minutes, no one moved. It felt as if the whole world had paused just to watch love say goodbye. Rex stayed there, breathing gently, as if giving Ethan all the strength he had left. Then the monitor slowed again. The beeps stretched out, and finally there was silence. Sophie screamed softly, collapsing into Michael's arms. The doctor stepped forward and turned off the machine. Rex stayed completely still. His eyes never left Ethan's face. After a few seconds, he let out a deep, aching howl that echoed through the hallways. It wasn't loud, but it pierced every heart that heard it. When they finally let him out, Rex turned one last time. He barked once on a soft final goodbye. The moment was captured on a nurse's phone. Within days, the video spread across the world. Millions watched. Newscasters wept on live television. Comment sections filled with messages from people who said they'd never cried that hard in their lives. But what happened after made even more people believe in something beyond this world. A week later, Sophie returned to the hospital to thank the staff. She parked her car and froze. Sitting at the entrance, tail curled around his legs, was Rex. He had come back. "Rex?" she whispered. The dog looked up and wagged his tail once, then stood and walked inside as if he belonged there. The guards recognized him immediately and let him through. From that day on, Rex began visiting the children's ward every morning. He would move from crib to crib, lying down beside babies, resting his head near their hands. The nurses said he seemed to know which children were in pain. Whenever a child cried, Rex would sit quietly beside them until they stopped. Parents said their babies slept better when Rex was around. Doctors couldn't explain it. But the ward began to feel different, lighter, calmer. Children who had struggled for weeks began showing small signs of improvement. The staff started calling him Guardian Rex. Sophie often came to see him. She would sit quietly on a bench watching him move from one child to another. Sometimes she swore she could feel Ethan's presence there too, like a soft warmth in the room, like a memory that refused to fade. Months passed, and Rex became part of the hospital. He was given a little tag that said, "Therapy Dog," though everyone knew he was more than that. He was a messenger of love. One winter morning, Sophie visited again. Snow fell softly outside, covering the parking lot in white. She found Rex lying beside a little girl named Lily, who was fighting leukemia. The girl's mother sat nearby, exhausted, holding a small stuffed bear. Sophie smiled gently. "He used to do the same thing for Ethan," she said. The woman nodded. "He hasn't left her side since yesterday. She's been sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks." Rex opened his eyes and looked at Sophie. She knelt beside him, touching his fur. "You're doing his work now, aren't you?" she whispered. Rex wagged his tail once, then placed his paw on Sophie's lap, as if to say yes. Time went on. The hospital even built a small garden behind the children's wing. Ethan's Garden, they called it, with a statue of a boy and a dog. Every spring, flowers bloomed there, and Rex would sit beneath the tree, watching the butterflies drift around. He never forgot. One night, a nurse found Rex sitting by the window looking up at the stars. His tail thumped weakly against the floor. She stroked his head and whispered, "You miss him, don't you?" Rex sighed, eyes half closed. The nurse smiled sadly. "Maybe you'll see him again someday." The next morning, they found Rex lying peacefully in Ethan's garden, his head resting on the grass, eyes closed, a faint smile on his face. When Sophie came, she knelt beside him, her tears falling silently. She placed one of Ethan's old toys, a small blue rattle, beside him. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You stayed with him till the end, and then you kept helping others." The hospital held a small ceremony for Rex. Children brought flowers. Parents prayed, and that night the entire building seemed quieter, softer, as if even the walls were mourning. But something strange happened afterward. In the weeks that followed, parents began telling the nurses that their children were smiling in their sleep. Some even said they'd seen a shadow of a big dog sitting by the bed. No one could explain it. Sophie smiled when she heard. "That's just Rex," she said. "He's still watching over them. He's still doing what he was meant to do." The story of Rex and Ethan spread again, not just as a viral video, but as a book, a short film, and countless posts shared across the world. People said it reminded them that love doesn't disappear when someone leaves. It transforms. It finds a new way to stay. And in a quiet hospital room somewhere, whenever a child cries in the night, the nurses sometimes hear the faint sound of a tail thumping softly against the floor. Maybe it's just the wind, or maybe it's Rex, still guarding, still loving, forever faithful. Because some goodbyes never really end, they simply turn into love that never leaves.